got the computer stuff all figured out, and I'm gonna hand it over here
the
to
IT expert.
yeah, Carl, the IT guy. Yeah, I'll hand it over here to Steve Jonesi. Give him your attention. Thanks for coming, Steve.
Thank you guys for your patience. Thank you guys, first of all, for having me, inviting me up in the middle of winter. Awesome. Last year at the Wausau show, my booth was right across, chatted with you guys for 3 days. You guys did an incredible job. And then you did an incredible job getting this thing up and going. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to come talk. I mean, middle of winter to be able to talk muskies, and especially, and we'll get to it in a little bit, Iowa muskies. You betcha. There's just some pictures. There's actually my biggest fish was caught on vermilion. We were staying at VDL that year. This was like 8-9 years ago. Buddy's boat. We went from VDL. It was rolling so hard from the west, northwest. Couldn't fish. Couldn't even, the trolling motors out of the water. So we went all the way west. Oh, it'll be better. Well, yeah, there were only 2.5 footers down there. So this fish eats a monster medusa in the 8 on the 3rd time of trying to eat it in the net in 2 seconds. Get the thing measured, da-da-da. We go to release it, the fish wouldn't go. I'm like, this is the first spot on a week-long trip, and this fish wouldn't go. The wind's blowing us along this shoreline, and it's a rocky shoreline, and there's some docks that are up and whatnot. Literally, he pulled his aluminum boat up into the shore. I got out with this fish, worked that fish for a couple minutes. She wouldn't stay upright. Put my hand and applied pressure from the anal vent up. The fish started burping. Stayed upright. A couple minutes later, swam away. Blown away. Never had a fish do that. But I'm thinking to myself, 54 3/4, what am I going to do with this fish? I can't keep this fish. But they do die sometimes. But that one, that was a kind of a crazy story. Embrace the grind. I don't have to tell you guys. I mean, big water. You guys know big water. You fish it all the time. I saw this meme a couple years ago on Facebook. I loved it. Because that's just it. You know, you read and you hear some things, the gear we use, the big boats and expensive. I tell people, I catch a fish from a bathtub if it's rigged right. It's got to float. It can't be with a cloth tub. But the point being, whatever you got to get you on the water, that's what you got. Do the best you can with what you got and have fun. Because that's what it's about. It's supposed to be about. Yeah. How it all started for me, my parents, well, grandparents, had a place on Upper Post Lake in northern Wisconsin, Lang Lake County. They stayed at a resort in the 60s. They ended up getting, in the 70s, early 70s, bought a place across the lake. So my brother and I were really lucky that we were born and raised in Chicago, kind of near Wrigley Field, the concrete jungle. But he and I literally, unintended, took to it like fish to water. Anywhere in, on, or near the water, we were there. I saw, going to the bar, tavern with Grandpa, guys would bring in a muskie every once in a while, and everybody was oohing and ahhing, and I'm looking at that fish going, I guess one of those. That's how it started. September 25th of 77, I got my first legal muskie, 30 inches at the time, was a 31-incher on a 7-inch yellow suic, 5'3" Fenwick lunker stick spinning rod with a Zebco Cardinal 4. And I still have the combo and the bait. Amazing. So 22 is literally my 46th year of fishing muskies. When Mom was going through stuff, she had pictures that I had drawn when I was in kindergarten, 1st grade. I even had the Lund logo on the side of the boat. Couldn't draw a bucktail real well back then, but there weren't many on the market. The other thing, my dad. Dad got into it. He'd always been kind of into fishing and that, Well, he got into muskies through my uncle, joined Muskies Inc. in 1976. That was nutty, because now the little fat kid had reading material. Because you go to Field and Stream and those, there wasn't a whole lot of muskie stuff available. Muskies Inc., that magazine, that was huge. That's how literally I started reading. Worked at Shields, Gander Mountain, and Thorne Brothers. Opened Shields store in Iowa City, worked at different Gander Mountain stores, opened the store down there. I spent a lot of years in outdoor retail, about 20 years. And then was divorced in '04, moved to Minnesota, got a job at Thorne Brothers, started a guide service. And the rest is history. Mille Lacs basically is where the home base was. And that was kind of what you guys had experienced out here, that initial surge where you could do no wrong. I mean, these fish were everywhere, they were eating anything. And I think part of it, they were what I call generationally young. Some of these lakes that we fish in northern Wisconsin, those fish are generationally old. These fish and some of the fish we see in Iowa, the stockers, they're generationally young. So they're still kind of young and dumb. Kind of my thinking. But we continue. Again, I'm old school. You know, I was going to come in and tell you guys, I don't have some video, multimedia presentation. I talk and show some pictures and tell stories. But how I started, I'm old school. I started reading books. Levy's Man Against Musky, Jim Lynn's Musky, Ron Shara, that Man Against Musky, when he was first wrote that book in '76, Mom bought the book for Dad for Christmas. I knew where she hid it. They left the house, I'm digging through their closet to get that book out and look at those pictures of Ted Capra and Al Linder and those guys catching these monsters. So yeah, In Fisherman was huge, Muskies Inc. And then I studied. Even now, I've got this Navionics app on my phone. If I'm sitting, instead of getting on Facebook or, mental masturbation, doing something, I'll get on and I'll even look at the lakes that I fish, these smaller lakes in Iowa. And I'm like, okay, June, where would, and things that just pop into your head. So I'm always studying, always looking for something more. That was the one that kind of put my guide service on the map. Jody Doms caught that fish on Mille Lacs, and that's kind of a terrible picture. But it was October 6th of '06, about 7:30 at night, 54 by 30. I'd never held a fish anywhere near that. When he got the fish, I was running a tiller, a 620 tiller at the time. So I'm in the back popping the motor in and out of gear. We're fishing Shaw's Reef on the southeast side. The wind's blowing into it, so it was kind of perfect that I could just kind of work along. His buddy Derek's up in the bow, he's in the middle. We're almost to the end of it. We've been fishing all day, overcast, some wind, mist, perfect musky day. You can see a fish all day. We get to the end of the reef, and I turn and look, and I see his rod load, and I knew his cast was off the end of the reef. He's not snagged. And the bait, the week before, fishing these rocks, needed a bait that I could cast up on the rocks that had some buoyancy. So, and we were throwing cowgirls at the time and other baits. So I took double 10 blades. I took 4 Kaiser Starflash silicone skirts, made them and put hollow beads for spacers and made this bait about that long with a joint in it. And that's what the fish ate. But that night, I'll never forget that night. We get the fish in the net. He's like, "Do you think she's 50?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." And I'm looking at this fish that's that wide. Well, I go grab it by the head and to get the hooks out, and I let go. I'm like, "We got to get some measurements on this." So we literally had to cut line twice. I didn't have a girth tape in the boat at the time. I had the bump board. Not good that's going to do. So I cut line, put it on the fish, well, not big enough. Cut it again. I wish I still had that piece too. But yeah, that was a pretty incredible experience. But yeah, Shaw's Reef, October 6th of '06, night of the full moon, about 7:30. Only fish we saw all day. And that's one of those Mille Lacs brown fish. They're still out there. You know, we got one year, a guy got, it was a 38 incher. And this thing was brown as the floor. I'm like, things are spawning out here? Yeah, it's pretty incredible, those brown fish out in the Lacs. Presentation. I thought you guys might like that meme in there. Perfection's not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. You know, when I started back guiding a couple years ago, and how that came about, I was doing trade shows all over the country, working for a local company. The coronavirus hit, I got laid off. Mom started home hospice up in Rhinelander. I moved up there. My job was eliminated. Mom passed. Okay, I'm 54 years old. What am I going to do? Start sending out resumes? No, let me take a little time to think about this. And talk to some people and did a lot of soul searching, and this is where my heart lies, and this is why I'm doing it again. Trying to give back some too, and teaching. You know, I was thinking driving up here, you know, these guys, they're fishing for 55 inches. There's a lot of experience here. We're not going to reinvent the wheel, but if somebody could pick up a little something, maybe trigger a little something that might, hey, maybe try, worth it, definitely. I like to fish aggressive per water temp. Maybe not a lot of forward movement of the bait in cold water, but I want that thing getting sideways and goofy and then hang. Not a lot of forward movement. Summertime, warmer water, kind of the opposite. A lot more aggressive, and there's a lot more forward movement. It's kind of a game to keep away. I like the erratic thing. Obviously bucktails, not a whole lot of you can do with erratic. I do like the pulse bucktails, and if we're getting follows, I'll get into tackle a little bit too. But using 10-foot, 9.5, 10-foot rods now, aside from deep figure eights and that, being able to steer a bait, steer it around cover, change of direction. You know, some of those Minnesota lakes that are super clear, you see that fish coming a mile away. You know, change of direction can be a big trigger. You know, the figure eight, everybody talks about figure eight. It is the most important. We catch probably 60-70% of our fish at boat side. And when we talk figure eight, there's so many variables to talk about with the figure eight itself. I start with a simple L. You know, and clients, people just starting out, start with a simple L. Keep the bait in the water, rod tip won't bother them, but make an L. So that first change of direction, there's one trigger. Coming along the boat, there's nothing there, make a little loop, nothing there, another trigger point, bait's out of the water. I'm not doing prolonged figure eights, typically. Darker water, maybe a little more intense. But perfect practice makes perfect, and that's on the figure eights and that's on casting. You know, I had some guys earlier this year, we have a bite down there where it's a weed bite, and there's pockets and miles of this curly pondleaf cabbage, and there's pockets, and you've got to hit those pockets. If you're, you know, not hitting those openings, it's going to be tough. And if you're casting on top of the weeds, it's going to be impossible. So practice casting for new people. That's a big thing. And even, you know, I mean, I still get backlashes. I snapped one off this year. It's because I take all the brakes off my reels too. Don't do that. I like that's another thing, my cast. I like casting, if I can, longer. I want long casts. I want to cover the water. I want that fish to eat it out there. I don't want it to eat it at my feet. Give them more chance, more time. The strike zone. This is something I talk about with clients all the time. It grows and shrinks based on the mood of the fish, weather, local weather, water conditions, but also temperature of the water. I like, with open water, the lack of cover. The strike zone is huge. And like our lakes, when they clear up, or even some of the lakes we fish up north, I mean, when they clear up, when you're ripping a dog or a deusa, whatever it might be, that fish picking that thing up from a mile away. There's nothing to interfere with that vibration other than fish. Then we get into the erratic thing. It's not swimming like everything else. Cold water. This was one this fall. Fished with Herbie a couple days up on Eagle. He put into words what I think that I couldn't figure out. How do you, that's it. Cold water, you're fishing bottom to top. Warm water, you're fishing top to bottom. So in the springtime, ice out, we've got no close season, so we've got a good month and a half of pre-spawn fishing. It's almost like where you're picking up where you left off in December. You're fishing gliders, dive and rise, super slow. Almost rubber's almost too fast. Shallow dogs, take some weight off. But these fish, we're fishing, depending on the depth, they're not coming up in that cold water from 10 feet. They're on the bottom, 12 feet, hanging in those trees. They're not coming up to eat that bait that's a foot off the bottom. They're just, they won't do it. There's always, there's never, dead fast rules. Which reminds me a couple of the sayings. Fish bite least from the east, best from the west. Came up with that? A couple of drunk guys at the bar. Had great days on the east winds. Wow, that's one. Do the fish like it? Does it bother the fish when it's raining? They don't know it's raining, they're already wet. They don't care. I do love fishing in the rain. I like fishing in snow better, but yeah, fishing in snow is fun. Baits and tackle. The trend obviously has been for years, longer rods. Started using 10-footers a couple years ago. The first trip, I blew, and they weren't big fish, thank goodness, but I probably blew 2-3 fish on the 8 because that rear handle of that freaking rod was so long. Trying to get it around my hoodie, and so after a couple days of throwing it, got a little more, in tune with it. But I love longer rods. Even my twitch bait rods, I'm using 9.5 footers. Casting distance, figure 8, being able to manipulate that bait kind of at will. And I look at figure 8s and boat side stuff, it's a game of keep away, and I'm going to win. You got to, judge the mood of the fish and all that too, but technique specific, it's gotten more and more. I put together the combos for this season. Then we go into the summer season and those combos. More blades. I like high-speed reels for my gliders, rubber, taking up line, getting back in contact with the bait. Typically cranks and blades. I'm using the lower speed cranks. But I'll, depending, again, smaller blades, that high speed when it's really got to go. I don't want to work as hard. I'll put it on the 6.6 gear ratio. And again, money. We're in musky fishing. We know it costs. Baits are crazy, getting expensive and that. We can have fun without spending a ton of money. Spend what you can afford. I've been in bait buying addiction a couple times over the years. Baits are tools. We're going to the show season starting. Going to Chicago next week, and I love baits just as much as the next guy, but I have to put a hold on it and just mass buying. Oh, that's cool. Well, I'll throw that here. I look at them more as tools. How can I use that bait? How is that bait going to help me catch fish? And when I do buy baits, I like to do a lot of that. You know, we're fishing one of the lakes down there outside of Cedar Rapids. We're fishing. It's loaded with shad, and we're talking shad, but also shad. You know, there's bigger shad too. I like brighter baits, and then action too comes into play. But unmatching the hatch, something that stands out from the crowd. And that can be both color and action. When I'm buying baits though, and tools, I look at bright colors. I want a natural and a hot color. Those are my typical. If it's a bait that I know I'm going to be using, I want one hot, one natural. And that can be based on light. You know, bright days, bright baits, dark days, dark baits. And so much of that, it is personal preference and more importantly, confidence. You know, what's happened over the years, what you've seen. Confidence is a huge part of the game. Black and orange. It's a great color for everybody everywhere. Not this guy. I can do it on hard baits, but I can't do it on a bucktail. I don't know why. I can do it on rubber too. You know, another thing, before I even started, I should have said, if you guys, anybody has any questions or any comments, anything, whether it's the Mille Lacs, whatever, fire away. Because this should be interactive. I'm not just up here. I could truly, you guys would be falling asleep. I could ramble all night. But if you have any questions, by all means. Got to talk the pictures first. One of my favorites. One of the most underrated baits in the history of baits. You know, those Criscos, they're a $20 bait, and all they do is catch fish. And it's that color, that old Fire Tiger, and the other one is the black and silver. That mine looks almost white because it's been chewed up so much. Casting them, trolling them.
What size are those that you're looking at?
The 10-inch.
Yeah,
Yep, the standard size. Talked to some buddies in Minnesota, and they say, quit talking about that. If they need a bite, they're throwing a Crisco. And I like throwing them at night too, because they're loud. I started throwing the Crisco down in Iowa, September, several years ago, because it was green. When that algae bloom and the water started cooling, that water on Pleasant Creek was thicker than thick. Like, okay, this is loud. Well, the biggest fish I've ever had on that lake, eats it in 2 feet of water, and then shakes it right there at the boat. I'm hooked. That was it. And then my other favorites, that old 9-inch M9 Grandma. You know, that one. This one is just, that's money down by us now, pretty much anywhere. That was one of my dad's. You notice, this is one of my things. I have boxes of hooks because I can change out all these hooks. I like the owner hooks on a smaller baits. The gap on this 3-aught, it's a stinger. The gap on it, it's a little shorter shank. I could put it on minnow baits. I love those hooks. I bleed just looking at them. But I love the other favorites, the 7-aught and the 3551. And then probably my all-time favorite, the 774 Eagle Claw with the little outward point, what we all used to call the reef hog hook. I love those. But yeah, so I change out hooks a lot. But terminal tackle, that's the one thing. We spend money on trips, we spend money on gear, and that, don't skimp. You know, there's a couple things you don't, and I saw somebody looking for something online a couple weeks ago. You don't shop for discount bungee jumping. You don't shop for discount leaders and that. I started using last year, year before, started using Trophy Time leaders. Steve Gould out of West Virginia. Super dude. Love the leaders. And one thing that's different about them, he uses a welded ring that he attaches to the snap. So it's a lot more loosey-goosey at the snap than if it's tied tight. One of the things I like. Solid welded rings, I do some of my own. My glider leader in the springtime is like a little 6-7 incher, and I put a solid welded ring on there that I tie to. Every bait in the box typically has a split ring, good quality split ring, which I'm in need of. How does that happen? I'm out of number 7 split rings.
What kind of split rings, what brand do you?
You know, I like, always got the Booker, you know, that I know.
5 and 7s for Bookers, and then
Yeah.
Tyrant Tackle makes a number 6 that's pretty outstanding too, so just in the middle there.
Well, some of my bigger trolling baits that I use Minnesota and Canada, I was looking for something that 7 just wasn't it. And I discovered the Spro Power split rings.
Mhm.
They make a 7 and an 8. That 8 is a beast. It's like 255-pound test or something. But between
Are they
those
double
two,
or triple?
they're double. And that's the thing with the triples, and I do like the triples too, and I have them on some baits, but for the nose,
Big.
yeah,
The action
width.
gets all dumb.
Yeah. But that's why I put split rings at number 7 on the nose of all my gliders, minnow baits. It just gives it more loosey-goosey action. Yeah. And I get baits, you know, I'll buy them on Facebook, and I'll get these baits, and they've been riding in the box. The hooks aren't sharpened, you know. I bought a couple, one of my favorites, that little 8-inch Naven. Guys are using these things, they're not even bending the tail down. You gotta bend that tail. But that's another one. Love that. Any questions on the tackle stuff? You know, technique-specific leaders too. Wire, typically for gliders. I know some guys are using wire for rubber now. A couple different options there. But typically it's fluoro, solid wire, and then Canada trolling, stranded wire. Yeah, 3-foot leaders. Yeah, trolling.
Oh, you mentioned a shad bait. You're talking about your home waters. You're talking about the shad based fishery.
Right.
So we've got a shad based fishery here. Is there anything that you found specific to that shad forage that, I mean, like bait wise or anything like that? That you think is like?
You know, I've been looking the last couple of years for, I mean, I can find them.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's shallow or deep, finding them. What's causing them, number one, to move up and down in the water column? When I see the bait high in the water column, woo-wee, get a little giddy. Now, if it's down deep, it's like, okay, I know on Vermilion, that open water pattern in June, that's all caused by bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's a mud bottom, what's coming up, what's hatching, what's causing the bait to move? You know, down by us, those shad, I mean, there's times you can't get a bait through. I mean, you literally could walk on these shad. I had one deal last year, went out by myself, had a little time, put the boat in, go across the lake. I'd been seeing some fish in this area. I go to drop the trolling motor, and I see about a 10-inch shad right on top of the water, flying by the boat. I knew exactly what, zing, working a Suic, about a 42-incher comes on. Nose to it, didn't eat it, but that thing was being chased. But finding the shad, it can be a curse too, you know, because there's so much competition. That's kind of where the unmatching the hatch comes in. We do real well on a shad lake on oranges. Orange bellies, orange tails, even black and oranges. The release, which you guys know all about, but here's another story for you. That was that fish. We already went over that one. This one here, on our way up to Menaki 2 years ago, not last fall, the fall before, 3rd week of October, on our way up there, I get a call from a buddy. Dude, I just got my personal best. Blah, blah, blah. He's all excited. I'm like, awesome. Where'd you catch, what'd you catch him on? Well, we come back from our trip, and it's like 2 weeks later. And we're fishing this stretch. This fish eats 47 and a half, ate that purple grandma. So you can't really see it here. This fish right under the lower mandible had a big knot, white knot. It wasn't oozing, it wasn't a sore or anything, just a knot. I had an idea where he had caught that fish, and this was 3 weeks later probably. So I call him up and said, dude, look at the pictures of that fish. Does that fish have a knot on its lower jaw? Yeah, it does. Catch and release works. You know, a couple of weeks apart. One time on Pleasant Creek, we caught the same fish twice in a day. Yeah, that's when they were stupid eating the weagle. Good Lord. Been moved, they ate. Again, generationally young fish. Stockers. All right, now let's talk eastern Iowa. 5-hour drive from here. Mostly 4-lane, easy drive. We have no closed season. Okoboji and Spirit, they have a closed season. That's why one of the guides from there is coming down here in the spring. It's kind of nice. You know, we can fish right at ice out. Pleasant Creek, Lake McBride, those two right outside Cedar Rapids. One a few minutes north, about 400 acres. Lake McBride, 15 minutes south, about 960 acres. Those are the two that I fish. Lost Grove, about 400 acres over by Davenport. Hawthorne, 200 acres or so. That is off of 80, about halfway between Iowa City and Des Moines. They drew Hawthorne down, they drew Pleasant Creek down, and built a bunch of stuff a few years back. They drew Pleasant Creek down 16 feet. The lake's 420 acres, you draw it down 16 feet. How much of fishable water do you have? Not much. You want to talk about shooting fish in a barrel? Oh, that year was ridiculous. That was the year that I started fishing the Bondi, vertically. Buddy's throwing pounders, and we're throwing rubber, and we're catching fish, medusas. I'm like, it's a vertical thing. Because I'm looking at the screen, and I'm seeing balls of bait. He started jigging that thing. It wasn't 15 minutes. I got a 38-incher. Well, I might be onto something here. Another 20 minutes, got a 45-incher. Eureka. And ironically, the biggest fish that we've boated out of Pleasant Creek have been on jigs. Yeah. One in the trees and one off the dam.
So those are flooded, what we call flowages here?
Exactly.
Flooded
reservoirs.
Reservoir, okay, yeah.
Pleasant Creek, 400 acres, roughly. Fishes like it's 200. Fish is smaller. It's a 4-to-1 watershed. So there's 4 creeks feeding it, where McBride's an 8-to-1 watershed. McBride is kind of unique because it almost makes it possible to do what I'm doing down there because it's like 4 lakes in one. You've got the north and south that are shallow dark water. You got the middle down by the dam that's more what I call pelagic. They're chasing shad, they're chasing white bass. And then you've got the midsection, which is more lake-like. Weed edges, humps, rocks. And there's jetties that they've got all over the lakes. Pretty easy to fish. Yeah. But they stock one fish per acre every other year. They know, the biologist down there out of the McBride station, Paul Sleeper, I've known him for 25, 30 years. Super guy, super musky friend. So he knows that some of these lakes can almost be put in take because people are fishing from shore. They're keeping, I caught it, I bought a license, I'm keeping it. And we've got signs up and we try to educate, but they know a lot of fish, there's mortality. I had a guy, I was on McBride last fall, putting the boat in. He says, fishing musky here? He's like, oh, you should be at Pleasant Creek. I'm like, oh, we get out there too. He's like, I crushed them all summer long trolling walleyes. You realize what the water temp gets on our lakes midsummer? Bath water. I mean, mid-80s is the norm. So that's another thing. We have 2 seasons. Mid-June, second, third week of June, and then typically September on. But they're stocking bigger fish, 12 to 14 inches. We've got no closed season, and with the forage base on the 2 lakes, they grow fast. You know, Pleasant Creek, the little one, used to have shad, and the fish in there, the only other lake I'd been on that I could compare the body structure of those fish was Mille Lacs. These fish, even a 36-incher was head shoulders, was a linebacker, nose tackle. One spring, had a super cold winter, the lake literally was rimmed with dead shad. And we're talking 18, 20 inches, big ones. It was too much for even the birds to eat. So yeah, the shad died off out there. And that was a pattern that was, when they spawned, I mean, you kind of had everything dialed, and then poof, they're gone. Any questions about that stuff?
What's the
How's
size?
April?
No, what?
How's April?
April could be good. The key though, like last year, you know, the wind in Iowa doesn't blow, it sucks. We had 40 days of 20, 25 mile an hour winds. It was crazy. The beauty though, she's kind of wide open, kind of low land, or, you know, flatter. Lake McBride's in a valley. So regardless, you can fish. And it's not like, okay, I'm just fishing to get out of the wind. Viable spots and viable stuff to fish. But I am thinking of going lithium this year. Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough of a boat to be pushing around.
Is there any river opportunities then underneath these
You know,
villages where
like
you can get in
McBride-
there after 'em, or?
McBride flooded several years ago. They put up a fish barrier since. I started hearing guys catching muskies below the dam in Iowa City, where we used to fish for walleyes in college. I'm like, no, come on. Well, then I started seeing pictures. I'm like, okay, well, I figured out they got out of McBride, went through the Coralville Reservoir, which I call the brown water, as brown as this table, and through the river. Viable fisheries, God, I don't know if I'd spend my time. There's got to be some in there, but number one, in those rivers, there's everything that swims. There's so much food for those fish. Somebody will catch a monster at some point. I know they got out of Okoboji up there.
You may have watched the lower guard.
Shell Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shell Rock River. So there's some opportunities, but it's really based on flooding, you know, if they're getting out. I know Brushy Creek, the Muskies Inc. chapter there, I mean, they were going out in the river, catching them, bringing them back up. They had the kids hauling the buckets of fish back up, put them back in the lake. But McBride has what we call the remnant fish. Good buddy of mine, Brian Becker, he had one not last year, year before. And they're like ghosts. There's a couple times a year you're going to have a good chance or a chance of seeing them. And this was end of May on a walk the dog. And he said he wasn't paying attention. And he looked down and this fish was all of 50 inches and 10 inches across. He was just a beast. And he's caught big fish with hammerneck and Minnesota fish. He said that was one of those fish. Then I had somebody, well, Vince, I stopped at the Chaos plant on my way over today. He asked, are there 50-inch fish down there? I'm like, there are, but they're ghosts. They are ghosts. You fish and fish and fish. Although this year on McBride, I had one that is going to haunt me until I catch it somehow. Trolling 5 lines. I like trolling 10-inch headlock in a wash. It's got a 3-foot leader, 10 feet back, 8-foot rod. This pattern is fishing shallow, 8 to 12 feet max. Baits are running 4 or 5 feet down. So I get up, I step in the back deck, and I pull the rod out of the holder. I don't have to crank it. All I got to do is lift it up. Well, I lift it up, and I see this absolute log, biggest fish I've ever seen in the lake, log come up with the bait, full length of the fish, rush forward, eat it as it hits the surface, head shake, and gone. And I'm just standing there stunned. I'm like, what just happened? And that was in a nondescript 8-9 foot shallow mud, nothing. Was that fish following it for a while? I don't know. But that one will haunt me. You know? Any other questions on these Iowa lakes?
What are your odds can you run?
You can actually buy a third line. It's two, but you can buy a third line for
That's
like,
cool.
I don't know, 10, 12 bucks.
Can you buy one?
You guys have that scrolling thing dialed here. I'm like, I'm seeing these pictures of the trees and oh my goodness.
Do they eat super shads?
You know, they probably would, but you know what? There were two baits last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Sure,
sure
we got
they would.
suitcases full.
Musky crack trolling baits last year. One was the 10-inch Ridgeway minnow, just a minnow bait. Fatter, so it's got some thumb, and just 40, 50 feet back, and it's running 4 or 5 feet down. The other one was at 8.5 matlock, musky crack. I had one on a fire tiger, caught probably a dozen fish. That bait, I mean, even at 3.4, 3.5, that bait's going 3 feet in and out. It's just ridiculous. And some of the other ones, you run them, they run different. But that one, there's something about that one. And again, wood baits. Yeah.
Are there seasons where you consider it more advantageous to troll versus cast?
You know, when those fish move out of the weeds, late spring, you know, we get this curly pondleaf cabbage that comes up, and I mean, it's everywhere. This year had an issue with lily pads. I had some spots that I couldn't even fish, because the lily pads came up early. This isn't like northern Wisconsin lily pads. It's 12 feet of water, the stems are that thick, and they're 2 feet above the water. You know, and you look down in there, you get back in there, and there's all sorts of room up under there. Okay, I don't get a bait. Yeah. The only thing I could think of, we fished shiners down in Florida. And they put it up to the hydrilla and that, and let that thing swim up under there. Only thing I could think of, can't get a bait to it. But that's, I would say, that time. You know, didn't do much trolling this fall. I mean, we trolled, but we didn't really. It was more finding those bait fish and casting them. You know. But that bite, probably end of May to third week of June was ridiculous. I mean, I tell people, and they're like, no way. You had a bite an hour. A rip an hour. I'm like, that is, I've never, and every time I'd go out, I'm like, today gonna be the day? Nope. And it was bright sunshine, it was overcast, wind was blowing from this way, wind didn't matter. You know, they were on them. They are dumb. You know, we overthink so much. We really do. You know, guys would ask different questions when we're in the boat about the fish themselves. There are no rules. They don't read books, magazines. They don't watch videos. They don't get on YouTube. This I know. It's just time on the water. You know, they're dumb. Eat, poop, spawn. You can fish on a prime day, all day, nothing, and then that 15-minute window opens up and they're everywhere. What happened? I don't know. Just be there when it does. You know? And that is, without a doubt, the best, the best experience. Or experience is the best teacher. Getting on the water as much as you can. Don't, when I was married, it was a little tougher to prioritize. With young kids and that, but we'll get into that too. But these two were awesome, and those were both trolling fish. That was her first fish. Pretty fish. Take a kid fishing, without a doubt. It's our responsibility. It is. Having spent all these years in outdoor retail, it was a constant. If we don't do it, it's going to die. And guess what? They're not buying the bows, they're not buying the rifles, they're not buying the clothing. We all have busy lives, for sure, but we gotta make the time. Try to make a difference, any way we can. Get the kids in the outdoors. This one here is my son, who is now 25, 2 kids. He took the plunge last year. He opened up a bait shop. He's a catfish freak. And he was getting bait from here and there and all this stuff. And really getting into it, he said, I'm going to do it myself. So he did. And he is, in eastern Iowa, kind of like a catfish pro shop. You think we're fanatical about our gear? These catfish people are crazy. And those catfish are everywhere. He wants to take me down to Kansas this year to fish blue cats. Yes, the 620 actually went out this summer and fished channel cats with that nasty cut bait in the boat and everything. Yeah, I did it. We had fun, good times. But it's back to the point. It's our responsibility. We got to get them involved. And really, with everything else that's going on in this crazy world. And that's it. That's what it's about, making memories. This year people ask, well, how many of this size? How many of this? I'm like, I don't know, but there were 4 people that caught their biggest and 8 people caught their first, and memories that literally will last for a lifetime. For me too. I got the best job in the free world. They could offer me 6 figures in the corner office of downtown Chicago. Pass. Can you make that out of a log? Okay. But that's really where we're at. Making memories. We get out in the water and we gotta catch fish and gotta catch fish. There's days where it's brutal. Have fun and the fish will come. Die with memories, not dreams. Or a bunch of expensive toys. I can pass those on. And that's it. Any questions? Concerns?
What about, say, northwest Iowa, Bogie, Spirit area? Do you get up there much at all? Or?
I don't. All these years, and how I got to Iowa. How does a Chicago kid get to Iowa? They had a great walk-on program at the University of Iowa back in the 80s. So that's how I got to Iowa. But all these years, I've never fished up there. I've been up there a few times for seminars and different things, different lakes, and kind of the polar opposite of what I'm looking for if I'm looking to get away, because it is a very popular recreation area.
Yeah, it's, for folks that don't know, the Okoboji areas would be the equivalent of our Eagle River.
There you go. Yeah.
Very touristy.
It's northwest corner of the state, probably about 5 hours from me. And the lakes are great. There's big fish in them. There's lots of fish. There's smallies. Okoboji is one of the only true blue water lakes in the country or something. Something crazy. Beautiful lakes. But boy, if I have that time that's so valuable, I'm going elsewhere. Yeah. Although if I did go up there, I'd go early season fishing smallies. And that's another thing. Mille Lacs back in the day, the smallies. Oh, I always said, if smallies got to be 20 pounds, I'd never fish muskies again. But again, I'm preaching to the choir, because you guys have, between you guys and the St. Clair guys, you have it really good.
Pretty spoiled.
Yeah, between the walleyes, the river, you got the smallies, the muskies, the big pike. Oh man! And then you talk about the sturgeon, perch, whitefish. What are those sturgeon? Sturgeon.
I heard you talk about glide baits. What do you like for glide baits?
I was really good friends with Todd Cleveland from Phantom. When I moved up there to Minnesota in 2004, I was in East Bethel. He was in Andover, 10 minutes away. So I'd go over to his house all the time, and hang out in the basement and smoke Marlboros and listen to Van Halen. Pretty much what we did. I'm talking about baits. But, I love the soft tails. But that 6-inch hardtail, I can make that thing do some things that should be illegal. You know, and the other one that nobody talks about, and one of my favorites, and I don't throw it enough anymore because of other options, that's 6-inch reef hardtail. Ah. Back in the day, Lake of the Woods, Wabagoon, you bomb cast that thing up there and you could work that thing through that cabbage. You could get it down 5 feet. Yeah, I love that bait. The other one, I only have one left. Heavyweight that Ed Castreba made. And this thing it's ridiculous. Should be illegal too. I could probably smoke a Marlboro while that thing hangs there. It's got hang like crazy. And that's one of the things that with glide baits or dive and rise, and this fall, we could fish through an area of nothing. You 6-7 feet down with that bar fighter and just let it sit there. Here she comes. They wouldn't look at a tube, dog, deucing nothing. But that bar fighter or that bait that hung, and with a super slow rise, they'd come up on it anyway. They wouldn't even know the time. But yeah, and that's, I'm still a Phantom guy. With all the baits out there. Last year I kind of did something different too, with the gliders. At the Chicago show, I bought a rod. Thorn Brothers 711 Predator heavy, medium, fast. It's a bass rod. Could handle up to 2.5, whatever, I didn't care. The action. So I put a 300 Tranks on it, high speed. Bomb cast like this. I mean, absolutely effortless. And I caught more fish on that combo up to 46 this year. Never had an issue hooking fish, and of course all the Phantoms have owner hooks. But I love that combo. That was awesome. Fishing it, I don't need a heavy musky rod. 65-pound braid on that reel. And for the old guy, effortless. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting on there in the early spring. Because it's a tough bite, but it's that one bite. And they're as big as they're going to be all year. Bill.
So can you talk more about that? Because we were just talking one in our meeting part. Our opening day is Memorial Day, so I've never really tried to fish pre-spawn muskies. What time of the year do you start running guide trips, and then how late? Fall, winter, whatever. When do you stop running trips, and when you're kind of in that real early and real late? What kind of?
This year we got cut off a little early, kind of second week of December. Typically it's around ice up, around Christmas. Last year, November, Thanksgiving was great. I did have a boat issue this year. Is anybody running Ranger with the keypad? Yeah. Boat's sitting there on Friday. Thursday's Thanksgiving. She's going to sit Friday. I go out Saturday, or Friday afternoon, walk into the driveway, and it's all plugged in the charger, walk into the driveway. How's that running? The bilge is running. The lights on a keypad are flashing. The interior lights are flashing on and off. Oh my God.
Huh.
Well, it was the brain box and the keypad. Yeah. So that took me out for 10 days. I won't go into dealing with Ranger. Good Lord. It was interesting. They sent the wrong thing. And I told them that my boat's kind of a different deal. It's got a little Green Bay history, actually. The guy, original owner of the boat, bought it new in 05. A couple years down the road, the boat develops a crack in the hull. Goes back to Ranger, Ranger fixes it under warranty. Guy gets it back, 2012, crack comes back. Boat comes back to Ranger. Ranger scraps that hull, builds him a new 13 boat and trailer, puts the 05 motors, everything from the old boat into it, up to and including the fire extinguisher. How do you think I found that out?
Coast Guard.
Third time in 35 years in Iowa, I'd never been stopped. Third time in a week and a half, he asked me to take it out. Cool. He looks at the bottom, stamped 04. Phil, you know what that means. But the dial's still good. I'll be going to Tyson's in the morning. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. 3 times in like a week and a half.
They're on to you.
Pardon?
They're on to you.
Oh, you know, they were super cool too. You know, and I was with the clients twice. And these clients are pulling out their phones and they're showing pictures, and I'm like, Major, let's get going.
Yeah.
We sat and talked with them for half an hour, 40 minutes. And these were 2 guys that get to the boat landing in the morning. Do you need a fishing license in Iowa? Yeah. We just came from Florida, and in Florida, if you fish with a guide, you don't need a license. I'm like,
Oh, not
you
Florida.
need a license. Yeah. Good times. For sure. Any other questions?
Just with them, McBride being the bigger lake, does it have bigger fish?
Fatter, yes.
Not longer?
Longer, you know, they both had fish 30 years. I would say it's got the same. But the pressure, boy, that coronavirus, good Lord. We went out there a couple times in midsummer or in the fall. It was ridiculous. We couldn't even make a trolling pass. You couldn't even play connect the dots on your waypoints because there's so many boats. Yeah. And the boats are one thing, the kayaks. You know, McBride is between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. Iowa City being home of the University of Iowa. There's trails around the entire lake. Because McBride's got some different regulations too. 5 mile an hour limit year round. You can run any size motor, but from Memorial Day to Labor Day, it's a 9.9 only. So of course you got pontoons going wide open with 2 9.9s on it. But it's the only lake in the state like that. Pleasant Creek, it's no way. You can run your motor, any size motor. And I didn't realize, but this year, after Memorial Day weekend, I put the boat in, I'm like, where's everybody? Where'd everybody go? All those crappie guys and bass guys, they won't put their boat in there now. We got a 25 or 40 horse aluminum boat. They were gone. I literally had the lake to myself.
Nice.
That was great for a couple weeks till the water gets too hot. You know, that was always the touch and go. And early in the season's one thing, but late in the season, oh, it rained last night. Surface is 79 or 78. It was 85, 2 feet down. You know, that's the type of thing.
And when does that usually hit? What type, is that like late July-ish?
June.
June?
This year was June. We were done the 3rd week of June. This year.
Average depth like 4 feet?
No, you know, well, Pleasant Creek's got 60 foot, 40, 60 foot. McBride's got, you know, plenty of depth. And this thermal stratification does occur. God, McBride, in one area, it was 30 feet, the thermal climb. But that water gets warm. Yeah. And thank God, well, there is some depth, you know, but trying to get people not to fish it when it's real hot. That's a big thing. You know, and we know, you know, we've got experience. We know what we're doing. We can handle them, keep them in the water. We don't need pictures, let them go. But boy, that's just a stressor. And there's so many that, you know, they'll die. We don't even know. I mean, I saw some dudes out there, and I knew the guy was out there with stepdaughter's boyfriend, and we pull in a spot, of course, he's there. I'm like, well, they get a 45. Nice. We keep fishing around. Well, then they get another one. Put it in the net, take it out of the net, put it in the net, and then drop it in the bottom of the boat. Well, 2 days later, I'm out there, and there's a 37-incher floating dead. You know, it's like, and we killed one this spring, trolling. That fish took that 3rd hook of that matlock, right up under done. I mean, there was no saving that fish. And we worked and worked and worked. But that was probably a 37, 38 inch. But yeah, it happens, you know, and it's like, you can't keep it. You don't want to waste the fish. But I guess it's going back to nature. It's sublegal fish.
What's the size limit on the lakes that you're fishing out in
The
the
size limit's 40,
Okay, which
you
is
know, which is
decent.
okay. Better from the 36 that it used to be.
Yep.
We've tried 48. And 40 is a trophy fish. That's what the DNR says they're trying to do, establish trophy fisheries.
Okay.
Wow.
You said they're only stocking every other year, one
Yep.
fish per acre, so that's a fairly low density. Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds about right.
Well, but boy, I was surprised how many small fish we caught this year. You know, and it's kind of hard. I'm pulling, like, I don't want to catch a 25, 30 incher. Not that I don't want to catch a fish. They're all beautiful, God's creatures. I don't want a bunch of hooks in its face.
True.
You know?
But we kind of do cartwheels and jump for joy when we see smaller fish out here, because for a long time, that shows us that these younger year classes are coming up, and we've got a good
You
future
bet.
for us.
Huge, huge. And that was the positive this year, that these fish, and the beauty of McBride with the weeds, Pleasant Creek's got like nothing for weeds, plenty of wood. But McBride, these fish have so many places to hide. Yeah, and there's really, aside from other muskies or the birds, there's nothing in there that's going to predate them. Although some of those wipers, those things are ridiculous. It's a white bass, striped bass, hybrid. They get into the 30 inches long, upper teens.
That you posted some pictures of your like bycatch
Yeah.
on Facebook a few days ago. That
Oh
was-
yeah,
Yeah, I saw. I was wondering what those exactly were.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And one of them ate, the one ate a black Medusa, mid Medusa, and the other one ate Poseidon.
How big do those things get?
Those two are 28 and 29. Those are the biggest I've encountered. Those fish, if you tied them tail to tail with a muskie, they'll drown it. They are the hardest fighting fish I've ever caught. The only thing even close would be one of those crazy smallmouth. Yeah, I mean, they are just screaming drag. Yeah. And this year, after the first couple times, we'd be out and we're working our gliders, and you'd come into them, and they're hitting the gliders. Well, some of them are big enough to eat the glider. It's like, okay, I got an idea. I put a couple spinning rods in the boat with the 3-inch Storm 360 swim bait, little white paddle tail things. Yeah, that looks like a shad. Oh boy. Start throwing those, and it was, I mean, you get into them, it's one after another for half an hour. You know, and then it may taper off, they move off, whatever, but good time. And started fishing them with 6.5 foot, you know, like medium light rods. No. We went to the 7.5 foot walleye live bait rods. We got to get some length and some bend to fight those fish. Oh, you'd be on those 6.5 footers, you fight them for 10, 15 minutes. I don't know.
Speaking of live bait, do you do much live bait fishing down there for muskies, or
You know, I
are suckers
don't.
hard to come by?
You know, having a son that's in the bait business, and he gets his bait from Gowan
Yep.
out of Dodgeville.
Yep.
I didn't this fall. You know, it was kind of late. I'm going to do some next year. I don't know. I know in Pleasant Creek guys have done it for years and caught fish. I don't know how those fish will react on the shad base. They might go stupid on them because it's something different.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, live bait. I did run suckers early season. 2 guys wanted to run live bait, so we ran live bait. It was a windy day. Bobbers. Typically when I run live bait, I'm not running bobbers. No bobber. You know, it's a line counter reel, and I know it's going back that far. And try to get more precision than just kind of floating it out there. You know, but God, we were, you know, fishing suckers up in northern Wisconsin years and years ago. And you know what kind of got me out of it? The fuzzy does it. When I started jigging that fuzzy does it, it's just catching as many as the suckers were. I'm like, I don't have to worry about that pain in the butt. You know, your arm gets a little tired, switch arms. We got two. But the vertical jigging thing, it's not for everywhere. I mean, it's pretty specific, but boy, it's a blast. When they eat 10 feet under your feet, it's crazy. And then on Pleasant Creek, that one year when they lowered it down, most of those fish that year, they weren't bottom related. They were all up in the water column. Related to bait. Any other questions? Oh, this is awesome.
So what do you do in the summer when it gets too warm to musky fish?
Cry a lot. I'm not too fun to be around. Ask Carrie. No, just, she's a teacher. Spend time with the dogs, you know, that. I actually substitute teach. Went back last year and got my certification to do that. But summer last year, well, I told Carrie, this summer will not be like last summer. Because I want to work. I want to be out on the water. Been doing some things, and I don't want to be premature, but looking at some things in northern Wisconsin. I grew up fishing up there. You can lake hop. There's so many advantages. There's 50s. Fish them a little different, you know, to do some different things, and those fish are there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. You know, when I moved over the first year, when I moved over from Minnesota, my brother was running the Rhinelander Musky League, so of course we're going to fish together. And those guys, him and his buddies, were all giving me a hard time. Oh, you're going to catch all the fish on cowgirls and bulldogs? No, I'm going to go one better. I'm going to go supermodels. I started cruising supermodels up there. Those fish had never seen or felt anything like that. It was musky crack. You're catching 42, 44-inch fish on the, that one right outside of Rhinelander. The Moens chain, the Blackwater. I'm like, oh, Blackwater, eh? I got something for you. But, yeah.
Boom flowage?
Well, fish boom, God, for years. No, this was the Moens chain.
East of
Yeah, just east of Rhinelander.
The boom is real dark
I had
too.
never fished it before I started fishing it that year with him. And I call it is truly the Blackwater. I mean, it's just like fishing coffee. Yeah. But those fish in there, oh my God, are they strong. Healthy fish too. But I haven't fished that in years. But all those lakes up there, Crescent, and God, when we could pull that boat at 16, that boat was all over Oneida, Forest. Anybody ever fish Roberts Lake? Oh man, that lake back in the 80s. I lost one on that lake that I never saw. God, one of those where the rod just goes and it just keeps going, and then the fish came up. How big was it? Yeah, it's the ones we lose that, yeah. That one on McBride this year, and then I had one on Eagle this fall. Yeah, that will haunt me till I die. That's why I have to go back there every year. I gotta catch that fish. Yeah, I do. I'm addicted now.
You go up there same time as Brian?
No, you know, honestly, I have no interest in fishing that lake warm water.
Okay.
You know, I want to be up there Cisco time, late fall, last week of October, first week.
November.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I saw this year is like, all right. But you guys are used to seeing that out here. Oh, those fish, good Lord.
And on that note, speaking of Brian Scaife, I don't know if anybody here watches YouTube, you know, a lot of fishing shows. Brian Scaife has got a channel called Angling Anarchy, and then Matt Babrock's got one. I think it's just Matt Babrock Outdoors or Matt Babrock Fishing. Check those out. Steve's been on a couple of those episodes recently.
Yeah, I took those guys out the last 2 years.
Yep, some really good action. You can see him work on the water.
Okay, I'll tell you, the first year, Supposed to meet those guys at 8 o'clock. We're not gonna take my boat, because Brian's got his boat all decked out with the cameras and stuff. So I'm at the boat landing, I get the stuff out of the truck, and I'm waiting on those guys. Where you at? Oh, we're at the boat. I'm like, no, we're going to the Opie landing. So they get there, and we get everything. I'm like, you know why we, wanted to come over here? It's like, why is that? Because the first fish you could catch is right over there. It was Babe Ruth. We're not fishing 10 minutes, and Brian's throwing a 8-inch Navy and gets a 42, a beast. I mean, nice fish. Yeah, we had a good day that day. But that's another thing. It's not a Navin. It's a Navin. Does anybody know how that name came up?
Navin R. Johnson from The Jerk.
Thank you. Exactly. That's what Jason Furman named it, the Navin, for Navin Johnson. Well, if you guys haven't seen The Jerk, it's a classic. Steve Martin at his finest. You got it. One of the greatest lines in the history of movies.
Yeah.
The new phone books are here. The new phone books are here.
I am somebody.
Classic. Any other questions? You guys come down or have an inkling, shoot me a message, text, whatever. I'll help any way I can. Don't fish Clear Lake, although that's another ice out one. And if you do, shifting gears again, if you do decide to make this little run down there, aside from those eastern Iowa lakes that I mentioned on here, western Illinois, Quad Cities area, there's a couple sleepers over there too that have really nice fish.
Really?
Yeah. For a springtime thing, no closed season again, and just an opportunity to throw musky baits and have a chance at a nice fish. But there's Lake George, Snake Den Hollow. Lake George is 167 acres, full of shad. A 46-incher will weigh 30 pounds. That one's had muskies for years too.
What strain of muskies are you seeing in the lakes that you fish?
Typically the Coudray strain.
Okay.
Yeah. And Iowa, and they're getting them from Spirit Lake.
Yep.
But that's what I'm typically seeing.
Okay.
One thing that was cool on Pleasant Creek a couple years ago, I'm 4 or 5 now with the Rona year, I had forgotten something in the truck. So I came back to the boat landing. I see the DNR truck there. I'm like, oh, what are they putting in? I walk up there, they're stocking smallmouth that they took from Spirit Lake.
Really?
And they were stocking them to establish a population in Pleasant Creek.
Wow.
And they were putting adults in there, 15, 18, 19 inches, which was cool. And we actually caught one this year on a walk the dog on a weagle.
Is there much of a pike population down by you? I know
None.
Bogie and that, they've got the silver pike up there, and regular pike too, but
I've seen on Pleasant Creek 2 in 35 years.
okay, so hardly any
Yeah.
pike at all.
Yeah, hardly any pike. And a pike that they did stock them in McBride years ago, but they were so temperature intolerant that they
Really?
died out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the creeks in that, it's possible. But it's funny, those 2 lakes, Pleasant Creek and McBride, they're atypical for Iowa because it's clear water. I mean, springtime ice out, you got visibility. You can see a crawdad crawling on the bottom in 10, 12 feet of water.
Oh, yeah.
Really clear.
Same thing like West Bogie too. I mean,
Yeah.
you're at 15 feet of water,
You
you can
bet.
see bottom
And it's
of
funny,
it.
the people in Cedar Rapids, they talk about it like it's, there's fish in there with 3 heads, and because it's a mile down the road is the old John Nolan nuclear plant.
Ooh.
So they built Pleasant Creek as the cooling lake.
Yeah.
So if there was ever an accident, there you go. So all these Cedar Rapids people grew up thinking that, it's like toxic out there. I'm like, it's the cleanest water within 200 miles. Yeah. But yeah, pretty lucky to have those fisheries there. And thank you, Paul Sleeper. Yeah, he has done it, for sure. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
When's the ice out usually down there?
You know, the typical barometer is St. Patrick's Day. You know, typically right around the 15th, 17th in there. Last year it happened at the Wausau show, so I kind of had the shakes a little bit. But it was kind of funny. You're talking to people at the show. They're like, "Yeah, I'll be fishing tomorrow morning." I'm like, "What?" I'm fishing in the morning. Yeah.
Have you ever tried to try to go through the ice down there? Or is
You know,
that
I
legal,
haven't. You know, and when I was guiding on Mille Lacs, guys always said, "Why aren't you, guiding ice fishing? Winter's the indoor sport season." You know, back up there, I mean, after 6 months on the water, time for a break. You know, I had a six-pack by September. And I'm a fat kid. I can do that. I'm like, I'm running like this for 6 months. You know, although now, with the Altera, we're conserving a little bit of that energy. When I figured out that I could push a button and drop my trolling motor, good Lord. I won't do the put the boat in and let it go thing, because I know I will swim. That's a guarantee. But good times. Yeah, we've had a few issues this year. I forgot to plug ones. That's what I call washing the inside of the hull.
Yep.
You know what? The two guys that I had in the boat didn't even notice. I'm standing in the back corner, run from the back corner, and I've got the just in case deck mount. And I look and I see water about a foot past the deck bottom. I'm like, that ain't right. I go over here, hit this switch, and go turn this thing, because it's got a remote plug.
Yep.
Which I've had a couple issues with. Frozen. Yeah. So what do I do the first time it happens? I go out there with the wife's hairdryer. Yeah, right. Not happening. So then I run to Tyson's and get a Mr. Buddy heater. It wasn't windy that day. Put that thing up there, 10 minutes later, everything's good. That was the last time I was able to do that, because every time it seems it's windy. And I've forgotten a couple times to, put it back in after I drain it. So now I just leave it out, put the boat in, within 30 seconds, turn that thing. And then hit the bilge, of course. Some of those landings are kind of steep. Yeah, back end of the boat takes on a little water. Heck, for all I know, I might still be there. Hope not.
What about your setup? You said you're running a 620 right now?
I am.
620, is that dual console and
Full windshield.
full windshield? Okay.
You bet. I went, I said I always like bubbles, the sporty look and that. Was up on Monackey 2 years ago with a buddy, and his 621, and he had bubbles that were barely bubbles.
Mhm.
It was a misty rain. I could not get small enough behind that. And then thinking late fall, whether it's here, Canada, Minnesota lakes, I want to fish in late fall. And boy, the utility of a tiller is awesome. I don't deal with that anymore. And the nastiness that I have, a little bit of experience with this 620 in the full windshield, nirvana. I'm dry, I'm warm. Even on those windy days, you close that center thing, it's amazing how much it gets cut off. Yeah. So
You're running a just in case back there too?
Yeah.
For extra casting deck
Right.
space
And this
storage?
boat actually came with a Modog running rack too.
Okay.
So that's about 6 inches, and I wasn't going to remove it. And a buddy of mine was selling his 620. It was a different year. Selling his just in case. I'm like, I'll take it. So I got a great deal on that. Yeah, and the whole story. The client that I had for 2 days before Thanksgiving lived 10 miles from the guy. Went and paid for it, picked it up, and brought it down to him.
Nice.
Lucky. And then we had a great couple of days. It worked out good. Find the bait. That was a 50-yard stretch. We caught 7 fish in 2 days, lost 3-4 others. He pulls out a 12-inch Phantom, never threw it before. I gotta see what this thing looks like. First cast, 45-incher eats it, spits it at the boat. Like, that works.
Yeah.
Throw it again.
Amen.
No doubt.
You get a chance to fish up this way much at all?
You know, I don't. And I really do. I mean, that's part of the thing, thinking about northern Wisconsin. It's not that far from here. To be able to come down in the spring and fish walleyes on the river. I love jigging. I do. I love that thump and feeling that fish on a jig. You know, I actually was going to do the Mississippi this winter. Yeah, I used to love that. And I started using high-end rods. I was using the Loomis IMX and then the GLX. And I went to 4-1 Fireline. Everybody else on these pools were fishing down there. They're using 5/8, half, 3/4 ounce jigs. I'm using 3/8. Donk, donk. It was amazing. I love that stuff. You know, I was going to go the Christmas week. Okay, things are iced up. I'm going to break out the 7-foot 3-way and go hit some of these little creeks and streams we used to fish for trout. And then that weather system came in. The wind and the snow, and it's like, well, maybe not. But I love that too. You know, taking that stealth approach, walking a stream. You got your polarized glasses and your feet. Yeah. And if they can see you, or you can see them, they can see you. I like the challenge of going by some of those where the hatchery is, and they stock local. Oh man, I mean everybody fishes them. They're the wariest trout in the state. That's why I want to fish them. Yeah. Well, really, Mr. Trout. Lots of opportunities down there, and no closed season.
And how many musky lakes are there in Iowa, approximately?
Oh, 15.
Okay, and they're not all concentrated in certain areas.
No,
they're
they're
kind of
pretty much
spread out.
scattered about.
So how far are you from Brushy?
2 hours.
2 hours, so. Oh, that's
2
great.
hours from Clear
Day
Lake.
trip, yep.
Brushy's another one. I didn't mention Brushy. Brushy's a great fisher.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of big fish in Brushy. Those Ridgeway boys hit that pretty good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's so hard to go to Clear Lake or Brushy, you know, to drive 2 hours each way,
Yep,
you know, knowing what I got in the backyard.
exactly.
Well, before the interstates, we were living Cedar Rapids. I was making day trips down to Hazel Creek in Missouri, Kirksville, Missouri. 3 hours each way. Trolling motor only lake. Africa hot, and then driving 3 hours home. Ugh. But that's a cool lake too. Trolling. That's another, you want to get nutty, early season lake. Yeah, Missouri DNR stocks the daylights out of it. Well, a lot of nice fish in there. But it's the water supply lake for the city of Kirksville. Trolling motor only. Oh, you got a big boat? You want to put it on your trailer? Good luck. Yeah, don't let the locals see you. I don't want to drink ethanol. But yeah, so many opportunities. So little time. Absolutely. Any other questions? I talk all night. Oh, good. Excellent. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we picked up something. We got the multimedia to work.